Welcome to our next set of notes in Unit 8 on motivation. And in this set of notes on motivation, we're going to talk about what motivates us in work and achievement. And this is personally one of my favorite topics in the entire course because I'm a teacher and I focus a lot of my time on what it is to motivate other people in order to achieve. So talking about what it is that motivates each of us individually in order to achieve or to be productive in work is incredibly interesting, and that's what we'll talk about here. So motivation at work. Sigmund Freud said that the healthy life is filled by love and work, and he's got a lot to say in the field of psychology, and we're going to talk about his influence. But let's talk about attitudes toward work. People have different attitudes towards that four-letter word. A lot of people say, that's why work is a four-letter word. I don't know if you've ever heard that saying, but maybe ask your parents because they probably know what it means if you don't. Some take it as a job and that it's a necessary way to make money, right? Others see it as their career. It's an opportunity to advance from one position to another. And even others see it as a calling and that it's fulfilling a socially useful activity. It's one that they are more inwardly, personally driven towards, not that there's an incentive of money and not the external incentive of moving up. So it's different depending on the individual. Let's talk about, let me back up really quickly. The stuff that we talked about in the last slide and in the next few slides are not necessarily like in order right there on your notes. So I would say maybe on a loose leaf sheet of paper or in the margins somewhere, you'll want to make sure that you jot down the attitudes toward work and then this idea of flow. Okay, we're not talking about progressive flow. This is flow in the idea of work and achievement. So flow is the experience between no work and a lot of work. And our book defines it as the observed quality of someone's life. It increases when they are purposefully engaged. It's between the anxiety of being overwhelmed and stressed, too much, and the apathy, which is kind of like the withdrawal, of being underwhelmed and bored. It lies in the zone in which people experience flow. So flow marks immersion into one's work. So again, apathetic, underwhelmed, being no work, a lot of work, anxious, overwhelmed, and being in the middle, that's like your zone, right? Like I am there. So people who flow in their work, and this can be anyone, but a lot of times we say it's like artists, dancers, composers, people who are performing, are driven less by extrinsic rewards of money, praise, promotion, and more by intrinsic rewards. Let me ask you this. Have you ever experienced... Well, I'm going to ask if you ever experienced flow, and let me kind of give you a scenario where you may have. Let's say that you are reading a book, or you're doing something that you enjoy. So playing a sport, maybe even playing a video game, or maybe a game on your phone, or hopefully it's something more productive, whether it's like a craft or some kind of art, or maybe it's while you are at work and you're just so into it, whether most of the time you will enjoy it, but not all the time, but you're so immersed in it and like get it done, that you don't even understand time. Like you kind of like come out of it and are like, wow, like an hour just went by. Okay, so that would be your immersion in your work, and that would be flow. So that could be flow in like one moment, but flow could also be like days, weeks, months, even years of someone's life, depending on where they are kind of in their job and in their career. Let's talk about industrial organization because it's the field of psychology that focuses on the workplace. So it applies psychological principles to the workplace. And this is not in your set of notes. So please make sure that you jot this down in the margin or on loose leaf sheet of paper. I have listed here two kind of subfields of IO psychology. There are three, so we'll write down all three of them. Personnel psychology, they use the principles of psychology to select and evaluate workers. Okay, so this would be kind of like your human resources department in a lot of different organizations and industries. And again, it's about the people themselves and the hiring and evaluating of those who work for a company. Organizational psychology studies how work environments and management styles influence worker motivation, satisfaction, and therefore productivity. So they're looking at, okay, what is our environment and how is that going to increase productivity, motivation, satisfaction of the people who work for us, as well as the management styles. Like, okay, Mr. or Mrs. Boss person, like, let's look at you and how you as a leader of a bunch of these people are influencing their levels of productivity. Because that's the idea, right? You need people to be productive in a company in order to be moving forward, in order to make that dollar or to make that success or meet your goals. The third type of industrial organizational psychology is human factors psychology, and this is essentially engineering. And so you can kind of see that engineering and human factor psychology go hand in hand. So designing optimum work environments. It's not just studying them and making recommendations, it's actually designing them. Optimizing person-machine interaction. So if you think about not just manufacturing, but probably in any kind of manufacturing, building of things, the machines and how a person interacts with them to make that a more cohesive, seamless, smooth process. And then developing systems technologies, so getting into the more technological computer science aspect of it. And that would be the third kind of subfield of industrial organizational psychology. So let's talk about achievement motivation. We've talked about work, and this is kind of where our notes pick up. Achievement motivation is the level of need for achievement. So in your notes where it says need for achievement, I want you to add to that the level of need, because some people have zero need, some people have a lot of need. So it's defined as the stable, learned, we're not born with this, learned characteristic in which satisfaction is obtained. We are satisfied by striving for and attaining a level of achievement or excellence. Okay, so this is different for each individual, your level of achievement motivation. Skinner devised a daily discipline schedule, which led him to become the 20th century most influential psychologist. So you could say that he was incredibly achievement motivated to a point where he had this like every single day, this is what I do kind of deal going on. That would be kind of extreme, right? Okay, so let's talk about the difference between those who are highly achievement motivated and those who are low achievement motivated. And you've got a couple of bullet points in your notes. Make sure that you label these properly so you know which one is which. So the first bullet point, those with high achievement motivation, you should make sure to underline that, tend to choose challenging tasks. So these people are very much motivated toward achievement. They want to achieve. They want the success. Therefore, they are motivated to achieve. They are motivated to succeed. But here's the thing. So they'll choose challenging tasks, but they're still tasks that can be completed successfully. They're not going to choose something that's so incredibly difficult that they can't achieve it, because then they wouldn't be reaching achievement, right? So yes, it's got to be something that they are proud to say, yep, I did this. But at the same time, it's one that they know they can do. So they avoid situations in which success would come too easily, as well as those in which success is unlikely. So they set realistically challenging goals. And this is awesome, right? Like, this is what you want. This is what you, as a person, should want. This is what you should want about for the people around you. So in the second bullet point there, those with low achievement motivation, make sure you underline that, tend to be motivated primarily by a desire to avoid failure. So they are not motivated by achievement or success. So the question is, what are they motivated by? Well, the desire to avoid failure. So here's what they're going to do. They will choose either very easy tasks, which they know everyone can complete it, so I can complete it. It's fine. I will just mix in with the rest of them. Or they'll choose the other extreme, extremely difficult tasks that they know no one can be successful in completing. Okay, so because they can say when they fail, well, nobody else was able to do it either, so I'm good. So it's not only that they want to avoid failure, it's that they want to avoid sticking out amongst the rest. They don't want to be different from the rest. They don't want to stand out. They avoid the task with moderate difficulty, kind of in the middle, where the high achievement motivated are. because they are afraid that they might fail at something in which someone else completed successfully, and that is failure to them. So, how do we measure achievement motivation? One way, and this is where Freud would kind of have an opinion, is with a thematic apperception test, and we're going to talk about this more in a later unit. People are shown ambiguous pictures, meaning that there's no one correct answer or story as to what's going on in the picture, and they're told to write a story about what is happening in the picture, and then a psychoanalyst will kind of interpret that person's story and what it means for them. So a standard scoring system is then used to determine the amount of achievement imagery in a person's stories, and it shows the need for achievement either being high or low. This is a projective test, which we're going to talk about that more in Unit 10 with personality. It's a picture interpretation technique. It can't be proved as valid, therefore it's not an objective test, it is projective. So when is achievement motivation learned? When do we kind of get this motivation? It tends to be learned in early childhood, especially from parents. And you're like, well, duh, isn't everything learned then? Yeah, kind of. But high achievement motivation seems to stem from parents who do 4 things. Encourage your child to try difficult tasks, especially new ones, even though there's a risk of failing. Like, you've got this. Like, you can do that. And if you don't, it's okay. At least then you've tried. 2, give praise and other rewards for success. And I would say not just for success, but for trying in the first place. 3, encourage the child to find ways to succeed rather than merely complaining about failure. And then I understand you're disappointed you failed, but why not try this way? Or what other way might you think to try and succeed? And then prompt the child to go on to the next more difficult challenge. More general cultural influences can affect the levels one has of achievement motivation through items like even children's books. And this is so funny because I have both of these books at home for my children. So how much the culture values achievement is very indicative through children's literature. And do you think that we value achievement in the U.S. and how so? If you look at kind of these children's books. Okay, so let's talk about what kinds of things motivate us. And these are 2 very huge terms for this unit that you probably already know quite a bit about, but you need to make sure you know them in the fashion that you could properly write them in an FRQ. So, intrinsic motivation, think of it as internal, is when you do any kind of behavior because you enjoy it and it is personally satisfying. If you are intrinsically motivated, you're more likely to work harder, persevere through hardships, produce higher quality work, all if the motivation is intrinsic. And I want to kind of clarify in your brain before you get confused on something. A lot of students will say, I am intrinsically motivated to succeed in school because I'm intrinsically motivated to get the A, get good grades so I can go off to college and make a successful person out of myself. Here's the thing. An A or any kind of grade is not inside you. It is external. Success in college is all external, or in a job. That is all external. That is not internal. So the example that I kind of just gave you there is still extrinsic. That is not intrinsic. If you were to say, I'm intrinsically motivated in school, you would say because I love to learn. I like the challenge of new information and knowledge. I like to study. I'm kind of a dork for school supplies. Sure, maybe I might be talking about myself, haha. But it's not about bettering myself so I get a good job and succeed. Although, yes, that's commendable. That's not intrinsic. So extrinsic motivation is when you do any kind of behavior because you want a concrete, tangible reward. Extrinsic motivation can be very good, especially if it's like for the success and I want a good job and I want to raise a nice family and blah, blah, blah. But it can be detrimental and it can undermine quality performance. In that it's been shown in research, those who are intrinsically motivated will do higher quality work than those who are motivated because of the reward. And that's all they're thinking about, not the quality of their work. All right, the last thing we'll talk about here is motivational conflicts. And these conflicts there's 4 of them. each of them being very similar, but you got to make sure you know them as separate kind of vocabulary terms. So as there are many different motives and many responses possible to any kind of scenario, sometimes such motives come into conflict with one another. So when we need to make a choice, what motivates us to choose? And that is motivational conflict. There's 4 basic types of motivational conflict and how we might choose. Notice that there's 2 kind of words here. There's approach and there's avoidance. So you'll see with number 1, there is approach, approach. Number 2, avoidance, avoidance. And then number 3 is approach avoidance. And then there's multiple approach avoidance. So we're going to talk about each of these. Approach is one must choose between 2 equally attractive options. So maybe in the margin of your notes, write really quickly. Approach equals attractive or positive, let's say. Okay? And that not necessarily good or bad, but in your mind you want it. It's attractive. Whereas avoidance is, in your mind, it's negative. It's unattractive. So approach would be attractive, attractive. You have to choose between 2 equally attractive options. An example would be going to the movies with your friends or attending another friend's birthday party. You should note that these options are equally attractive, and you're like, oh, how do I choose? As the importance of the choice increases, so does the difficulty in making this decision. So maybe let's say each of your friends in these 2 scenarios say, if you don't go, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. Woo, that makes it kind of stressful and important on what you choose, right? Avoidance would be unattractive. One has to choose between 2 equally unattractive options. So choosing which hated chore to do first, vacuuming and dusting the house or cutting the grass. It's very difficult to resolve and often creates intense emotions, such as if choosing between declaring bankruptcy or selling your family home, because it's like a no-win situation. Approach avoidance conflict is there are both appealing, attractive, and negative, unattractive aspects to the decision you have to make. An example would be telling the truth about a friend cheating on a test. The positive being you ensure everyone is graded fairly, but the negative is you might be afraid to lose your friend. And that in this one choice, there's positive and negative to both of it. It's difficult to resolve and often results in long periods of indecision and that you just don't know what to do. And the last one is multiple approach avoidance, and then you have more than 2 options. Okay, well, not even that. It's you have more than one choice, and that you have to make one choice, but you have multiple options. So one has to choose between both attractive and negative aspects of available alternatives. So, like choosing a college. Each has pluses and minuses. Deciding which one to attend can be difficult. This is difficult to resolve because it may be hard to compare the features of each option, and that it's not necessarily apples to apples, but you still have to make a choice as if it is.